Welcome. Today we are going to talk about intercultural competency. I'm Kelly Tzoumis from DePaul University, and we have a panelist here that actually will help guide us to understanding what is intercultural competency. Her name is Dr. Mona Pearl, and she's from Wilkes University. And this is for the book titled Intercultural Competence Through Virtual Exchange as a Tool in Achieving the SDGs. Mona, welcome. Can you please tell us your title, your best to define your title and what you do at Wilkes University?
Yeah, so thank you for having me as part of this amazing book. So I'm Mona Pearl, Assistant Professor of Management at Wilkes University at the CEDU School of Business, Finance, Accounting, and Management. And it's part of the College of Business and Engineering.
Wonderful.
So glad to be here. Yeah.
Wonderful. And the audience should know Mona and I are longtime colleagues and have many different research publications together. And so we're going to be very conversational in how intercultural competence through virtual exchange can support the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. All right, Mona, I think this is an important chapter. And this is the chapter that really lays down the foundation for understanding what we're doing in this entire book. So before we get started, for our audience, talk about what is intercultural competence and some of the misperceptions.
Of course. So as we look at it in academia, intercultural competence is a construct, but it's quite complex in terms that it suggests quite a few definitions, and it's not always straightforward. And it is used in many professional and cultural settings around the world. And sometimes it can be referred to as CQ, which is the cultural quotient. Sometimes it is cross-cultural competence. So we have different approaches and different words for it. But basically, it is the willingness of an individual to engage and learn and be curious. Look at other cultures and not look at them with some type of fear and apprehension, but it's more like, I'm curious, I want to learn, I want to connect, I want to find what we have in common. And it is also part of the behavior, how we treat other people. And many people think that linguistic skills are part of cultural competence, intercultural competence. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't, because cultural fluency is always more effective than linguistic fluency. I can be perfectly fluent in a language, which I am in a few languages. However, if I don't understand the culture and how people use certain words and phrases and idioms, it is not going to make me more competent and better at it. So this is some of the misconceptions when we look at culture and how people may perceive it. So it is about accepting cultural differences. I'm not saying we have to agree with everything. It's accepting and understanding people think in a different way. People see things in a different way. We kind of see the world in different shades.
And that's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. And it's based on our experiences, life experiences, the way people live in a certain country, the way our life is. So obviously that also brings to quite a few misconceptions. Like, again, as I mentioned, the whole idea of if I speak language, I must be culturally competent. But also having international experience means for some people that they are interculturally competent. But it is not always this way. Some people have international experience, but never actually expanded. their mindset over the boundaries of their own culture and country. And, just to laugh a little, so people will travel to foreign countries and look for McDonald's. So you traveled 17 countries, but you didn't really engage and were curious enough to learn. So these are some of the misconceptions, or that this is something, it's a construct or behavior or a mindset that cannot be taught or even assessed. Yes, we can learn. We can learn, but we have to be curious. We need to want to.
Well, and can you talk a little bit about, I mean, intercultural, that word competence after it is a high bar. And so it's not necessarily taking one course or doing one study abroad and you claim competence. Talk a little bit about what precedes competence.
Competence is a matter of behavior. It's getting along. It's having the empathy across cultures. It's being able to communicate. It's being able to develop relationships. Competence is something that is learned with time. So I can be wonderful with culture X and then go into a different country, a whole different culture, and I need to learn from scratch because people have a different way of looking at things. People have a different way of communicating, like concepts like hierarchy, like the physical distance or proximity. They're different from culture to culture.
Right. So when we're working with learners, it really takes kind of building some skills and repeating those skills and then moving up to where you have some competency in being intercultural and crossing cultures in your work.
Obviously, and crossing cultures, again, it's something that starts with the individual. Do they have the willingness to engage, the willingness to explore, the willingness to look at different cultures and learn? Because it's part of we learn and we learn from each other. And that's also part of the students. They don't only learn about culture and about business and so on. They also learn from each other, the students themselves. So it's a two level of learning that, and it's more practical. It's something that they can observe, and some people are better at it at the beginning. Some people learn with time, and unfortunately, some people have no desire to learn or appreciate other cultures.
Well, and now let's transition that notion and move into the SDGs, what this book is about in accomplishing the SDGs. So what role does intercultural competence have with our ability to achieve the United Nations SDGs?
Well, the SDGs are global challenges. As we know, the UN, they identified 17 sustainable development goals. But this is not a goal that the country can work on its own, or it's just about one discipline. So people need to learn to work in teams together across borders, across disciplines, across cultures. And this is the advantage because each individual on their own, it's individual differences, and then cultural differences, what we bring from our experience, and then professional differences can contribute to a different angle, to a different point of view as to how to tackle a challenge, a sustainable global challenge, how to work on it, how to implement it. And then again, when it comes to implementation, it is going to be different in each country based on the resources and based on the reality over there. So therefore, it's so important for individuals. And we're talking about students. These are the leaders of tomorrow that need to understand, need to be able to solve problems together in a team and an intercultural and a multicultural team, to have critical thinking, and critical thinking on an intercultural level,
Mm-hmm.
which is a whole different skill. So for them to be able to look at problems from different points of view, or even have the ability to talk to a colleague from a different continent, from a different country, from a different culture, different discipline, and together find solutions, work on them, and implement them. And this is a huge problem for the world itself, that we need to look at tomorrow. But looking at tomorrow and working for tomorrow starts today, or should have started yesterday.
That's a great point. And I want to highlight something you said earlier in that discussion. Multicultural, meaning we have learners from all the different continents, not just perhaps one region. Second, we have multidisciplinary, which I think is critical in bringing learners together at different levels in their college experience, at different disciplines, because when they get out to the outside world and they work perhaps on an SDG or anywhere in the workplace, they're not going to be in an echo chamber like they are in college, where everybody's in the same discipline, taking the same class, and around the same age. And so that multidisciplinary, I think, is really important. And then of course, completely different cultures, completely different levels of education as well. So it's kind of a wonderful mix, diversity of people that come together as learners and work on a particular project in a virtual exchange. And that leads me right into now the importance of the virtual exchange. What does virtual exchange lend itself to helping us in using building intercultural competence to achieving our SDGs? What does that virtual exchange do?
First of all, we're talking about a certain, I guess we can look at it also as experiential learning. I look at it more at learning by doing. So beyond the classroom instruction, and this is what intercultural competence and through the virtual exchange, this is how it plays a very important role in addressing global challenges in the education system. So yes, we all learn about the theories behind in each discipline, but how do we all combine it into practical solutions? So many of the world's most pressing issues, like climate change, inequality, public health, and so on, they actually require the collaborative solutions. And this is what they do in these virtual exchange experiences that they have from different cultural backgrounds. And for us, educating future leaders to engage in a respectful manner, with empathy, with an open mind, with flexibility, is so essential for fostering international cooperation, collaboration, and I must admit, for a better world, because we kind of are leaving for this generation a world that's not so great.
Very polarized and has been for many years. What you say, I mean, we've worldwide, there's been conflicts and an inability to collaborate. And I hope what we're doing in our classrooms using virtual exchange is really preparing our students for that intercultural experience so that they can get to successful implementation of a particular target underneath an SDG. Is there anything you've done quite a bit of research and have had you've been working in this field for quite a long time and you're from the business sector. Is there anything that you would like to share that you've noticed or you think is very important in terms of these concepts of bringing these students together?
Definitely. Again, coming from the business world and worked with many companies around the world, it never failed how many top executives, engineers, just about from any discipline, lack the intercultural understanding of how to work with other countries, how to actually get the project done, and how to, in many ways, respect the view of someone from a different country, from a different culture. So if there are countries that always look at the high tech, the AI and everything else, let's not forget that there is still areas in the world that doesn't even exist. It didn't arrive to. The other thing, what I usually do in my classes, the assignments mimic the real business work. These are some kind of simulations in terms of project design, in terms of what skills students are going to gain in order to be competitive in their career, in their interviews, in the business world. And from what I've heard from so many students, when they interview and the company hears that they have done one or two virtual exchanges, the rest of the interview focuses on the virtual exchange. And I find that very interesting because based on that, they gain teamwork experience, intercultural, and again, intercultural that can also be applied to diversity within country. They also get the project management skills, coordination, working remotely, and so many other skills that are so needed in today's business world. So when they compete on a job, and let's not forget, students nowadays compete on jobs globally because of the remote work. They need to have skills that are beyond the classroom, skills that they can hit the ground running. So when I see how we can contribute to the students' future and therefore to the world and therefore to solving these issues, these global challenges, it is very satisfying. And having these virtual exchanges for the last, I don't know, I would say 10, 11 years is a wonderful experience, not only for me, for the students because I see where they end up, but also for professors. And I can talk about my academic world, and we have done some stuff together, research and publications. So it's a whole new world that opens up not only for students, it's also for us in academia.
Well, and that's a really good point. And I want to go back and tie in what you said earlier. It's much more than language. Much more. And again, it's not one course or one project, but through a series of the curriculum, adding virtual exchange, doing inside of the courses that students have to take, not only does not disrupt their work-life balance or other kinds of schedule activities that the students are on for their curriculum, but it allows our students to interact globally at home by just interacting in their courses, in assignments that are not extra, but embedded and integrated into the course. And I think that is a very powerful pedagogical tool for our students to prepare for the global world that they're going to walk into. And finally, what I want to just ask is, picking up on your last point regarding the collaboration among professors, it's bringing the professors together. So we take training before we collaborate as professors. We guide our students, our learners inside our class for preparing for that intercultural experience that they have. And I think it's using this approach, I think, is a very holistic way to ensure that there will be a successful interaction, right? We're not just pushing our learners out and saying, okay, now do this project. We prepare them, and the professors prepare, correct?
Correct. And not only that, professors also get to upskill, because if we as professor cannot communicate and collaborate on designing a program and so on, this is not going to work for students. So we have to basically implement what we preach to the students. And many times I tell my students in class, yes, You're working now on virtual exchange. You need to collaborate. Think about it. We were doing it as well, the professors. We started, we didn't know each other. Obviously, when you work together for a few years, it's different. But at the beginning, we don't know each other. We are also from different countries, different cultures, different disciplines. We think differently. And we overcame the barriers and the challenges. So we're also talking from experience because, students look at that. Oh, so the professor is telling me what to do an assignment. Did they ever do that? Yes, definitely.
Well, I want to thank you for your time today. And I also want to say this is a wonderful bridge into the next remaining chapters that talk about different ways to do our global learning experiences. And they really tear off the concepts that we talked about here. So thank you, Dr. Pearl.
Thank you so much.